Welcome back, friends. You're listening to Unlearn with Bianca, a podcast where we talk about all things self-healing, health, personal growth, the mind-body connection, relationships, and more. Hello and happy New Year, everybody. I'm so happy to be back and recording. I really missed recording. I didn't realize how therapeutic it had been each week to get my thoughts, my learnings, whatever was going on in my brain out there and have some really great conversations with other people. So I'm looking forward to getting back into it this year. I don't know about you guys, but towards the end of last year, I was feeling pretty low energy. For the last few years, the month of December, it sort of brings up quite a bit for me. And this year it was a lot easier, which is nice. But sometimes our body still speaks loudly, even if we're not consciously thinking about things. Our body can give us cues, tiredness, those cues to just relax, to take it easy, to enjoy a break. And I definitely got that feedback from my body towards the end of the year. And I hope for those of you that were feeling the same way in December that you've managed to have a really nice break. You've taken some time for yourself. You've gotten out in the sun, if there's sun where you are, because I know it's been a bit hit and miss. And you're looking forward to 2025. Over the break, this podcast gained quite a lot of new followers. So if this is your first time listening, then welcome. I highly recommend going all the way back to the start if you want to understand more about me, my journey, but also there's just some really good episodes at the start that you don't want to miss. And before I dive into today's episode, I have an exciting announcement for you guys. On Tuesday, the 28th of January, 7 p.m., I am running a free live Nervous System 101 workshop. And I'm sorry for any of the male listeners out there, but this one is specifically for the woman, and I'm really going to go into the intricacies of women's nervous systems. So I'm going to educate you on the different states of the nervous system: fight, flight, freeze, and fawn, how they show up and how we can begin to map them in our own lives. And as we move through the day, I'm going to teach you about hormones in the nervous system and help you identify some mental and emotional patterns that I see get people stuck, and some tangible tools to start implementing into your life to bring you back to a place of regulation, back into that parasympathetic nervous system. So it is completely free. I'm not gatekeeping any information. So you can register by clicking the link in the show notes. I'm going to leave a direct link. It's also on my website if you look under services, which will also be in the show notes. I can't wait to see you guys there. This is going to be a really good session, some real basics that I think everybody should know, and you're going to learn a lot. You'll definitely take something away. So let's get into it for today. So this episode is going to be a reflection session. I'm going to share some questions that will get you to reflect on last year, 2024, and questions that will set you up for this year, stepping into 2025. I will do a more specific goal setting, breaking down the steps for goals. I'll do that in another episode. This week, am really feeling like an ease into 2025. I don't want more pressure. I don't want more rigidity. This is just to get you thinking and opening up to how you want to move through this year. Although I do have specific goals personally, one thing that I do before I start goal setting is I pick an overarching word for the year ahead. Because when you choose one word or two words that embody, encompass how you want to feel in the year ahead, I like to think of it as an overarching thread. It's like a mental anchor almost that you can carry throughout the year. Sometimes when we're goal setting, there's many things to think about. We've got timelines, we've got deadlines, we've got steps, whereas a word is simple and it influences your decisions and behaviors subconsciously because your brain becomes primed to focus on that one word or that one concept. And I was actually having a conversation with somebody the other day saying that I come to this realization last year that I have to reteach my brain and my body that it is safe to plan ahead. And long-term plan ahead. So it might sound a bit strange to people that are super rigid and they like having a plan and they're really organized, which I was like that to a degree. I do like a little bit of spontaneity as well. But what happened a few years ago after going through a lot of uncertainty, a lot of personal changes, moving, a whole lot of different things, is the plan wasn't going to plan. And I found myself adapting, changing a lot, meaning that I was only ever able to look about a month in advance without feeling overwhelmed. And that was just what it was at that period in my life. So I am gradually relearning that it's okay to plan ahead. So what I do to reteach my brain and body safety is I'm pulling my planning back to a point that feels good when I think about it. So at the moment, it's like 6 months. I can think 6 months ahead. And therefore, when I'm doing goals or I'm thinking about little milestones I want to reach, I can go 6 months. And I'm sure that the more I move through the year, the more I'm feeling grounded, the further out that plan can be. But I wanted to share this because if you're in the same boat, it's completely normal that if you've gone through a lot of changes, it can feel quite hard to think about the future, too far in the future. So just work with what you can work with. It's another reason why I really like my word that I can take through the year and just have that as something lingering, that thread that I can carry through. So before we get into the reflection, exercises, and questions, I'm going to share with you guys my word for 2025, partly because I want to keep myself accountable on here and partly because I think it's a cool word and I'm really liking it. So my word for 2025 is synergy. And why I have chosen synergy, I'm going to read out a definition. Synergy is the idea that when different elements work together, the result is greater than the sum of its parts. It suggests harmony, flow, and integration, whether within yourself or in your relationships, work, and environment. Thank you, ChatGPT. So synergy is my word of the year. When we go through the reflection exercises and the prompts, I'll show you how I got to this point because that's what it's going to be about. We're going to work backwards. But it's a really powerful word for me because it's embodying and signifying that there is room to be collaborating and connecting with others. I think we fully underestimate this power of community and leaning on each other because a lot of healing and a lot of growth happens through reflection of others, but also collaborating with others. Yeah, I am just ready to collaborate. So the word is giving flow. It's giving the idea of leveraging individual strengths and coming into union for something greater. And I really love that because that is what I am looking for now in terms of personally and professionally. And it feels quite a lot different than it had in the previous few years because truthfully, for the last few years, I felt like I was going inward a lot to figure out my next move, to figure out, to rebalance, to find myself again. And I didn't have a lot of energy for other people, other new people, different things. In life, there's a flow to it, right? So we always have contractions and expansions, meaning we go inward and then we are out in the world making headway and then we go inward. It's like, constant flows, ups and downs. And the last few years, I was definitely in up until last year, I was in more of a contraction phase. Yeah, it was interesting how that also aligned with my work. When I went to collaborate, when I went to do different things with other people work-wise, it actually never really flowed or eventuated. And it was no reason in particular. It was timings, other things were happening in other people's lives. And I just took that as a sign from the universe that the timings weren't right. So I'm only saying this because if you are listening and you're thinking, yeah, I've been trying so hard to collaborate and connect, or maybe it's just that the timings were off and that there's another season where you can get out there and it will all flow. So that's what I'm prioritizing this year. A lot more collaboration, a lot more connection to people that I am aligned with. One thing that we all need to be mindful of is connect to people that see you for you, that celebrate you. And that is really important. And the other word that I came to for 2025, it's a backup word. I wasn't going to give you guys two, but I've got it written down. It's clarity. I love the word clarity because I tend to be someone who takes in a lot of information, but what I've learned is clarity and synthesis of information is the most important thing, right? We can have all this information, but are we going to put it into action? Are we going to use it? And are we going to get clear with what we want? So often I think we get in our heads trying to make the best decision from up in our head. But as I spoke on in another episode, I think it was a few episodes ago, clarity comes from making a choice, moving forward, and then deciding from that choice what you want to do next. So it's always choice, decision, and you can pivot after any choice. And that's something I think is so important to remember, because we get paralyzed by trying to think our way out of what is the best decision, where do I go next? And clarity happens from forward movement. So that is my other word for the year, just continuing to take action, continuing to show up, and then from that place, deciding what I want to do next. So let's get into the reflective questions so that you can come up with your word for 2025. Now, I'm just going to talk us through this, but you're welcome to take pen and paper and pause this podcast at any time to take down notes. Otherwise, you can just, write the questions down as we go through and do them in your own time. So first, it is going to be a few questions about reflecting on 2024, because it's always important that we use past information to see what we want in the future. And then we'll use that to start to think about this year. So the first question is, what was I most proud of in 2024? So put that pen to paper. You can take bullet points. What were you most proud of in 2024? Now, this can be simple. The reason I am starting on a question that's actually positive and filtering out what we have done, what we've achieved, what we're proud of, what we're grateful for, is to get those neural pathways, those brain pathways firing up. So we can actually see, there has been some small changes. If we don't take time to stop and pause and reflect like on the positives, I've said this before, our brain is likely to skip over them. So these can be simple. Perhaps you did a workout a week and you didn't do that in 2023. Maybe you saved some money. You spent less on things that you know were wasting your money. You were happier or patient with the kids. Maybe you had a hard conversation. Maybe you prioritize your nutrition. There's so many little things that we don't think about. If you were someone that put one foot in front of the other and you left the house, and that wasn't something you felt like doing, I want you to put that down and congratulate yourself for that too. Because one thing we're not going to do in 2025 is shame ourselves into making change. So pen to paper, all the things that you are proud of in 2024. Some examples for me. I was able to own my choices more in 2024. In previous years, I'd find myself going back and forward, sometimes owning them, sometimes justifying certain decisions I'd make. But the older and the wiser I'm getting, the more I just feel assured in living my truth and knowing my choices, if they don't affect anyone around me. I need to be confident and strong in them. So that's something that I was really proud of. I was also proud of exploring new work ideas. With the podcast, with Self-Sourced, I really felt like I had grown exponentially over the last few years, and just talking about chronic illness in one box, it didn't feel true to me. Even though I find it super fascinating and I'm passionate about it and I have a lot of information that I can share and pass on about that, I think it's really important that we give ourselves space to evolve. And it's something I've been thinking about a lot, just allowing ourselves to expand, to learn something and then change our mind. It's an important part of the growth process. So something I'm proud on is that I'm expanding my work. I'm keeping my chronic illness. I'm stepping into women's health. I'm doing more this year of workplace talks and workplace programs, and the podcast I'm just loving. So super proud of myself for that. And in my personal life, without going into too much, one thing I'm super proud of is my ability last year to let things go faster. To me, the process of this is acknowledging my emotions, validating my own emotions, and then making that choice of where I want to put my energy into. So if you're working on that too, put that down as something to be proud of, because it's not easy to let go of things that we feel a particular way about sometimes, but it's such a powerful skill that we can all cultivate, because when we get used to letting go, we can put our energy into other areas and really focus on what we have influence over. The next question is, what drained my energy, or what was my biggest distraction? I like to think of this question like a bucket analogy that I use when I'm teaching about retraining the brain. We have a bucket full of resources. It could be energy, it could be happiness, aliveness, calmness, and things that drain our resources from our bucket are like holes in our bucket. So all the water's leaving, all the resources are getting drained, and then we're wondering why we're not feeling good. This question around energy is really important, because our energy is like a GPS. We are either doing things over and over again that are calming, that refuel us and recharge us, or we are engaging in things that are sucking the life out of us. Now, I'm not just talking about one time, because, of course, in life, sometimes we have to do things. It's just what life is. But I'm talking about consciously doing it again and again and again. So the question is, what drained my energy, or what was my biggest distraction? When I asked this question to myself, I really thought about what was my body feeling like too. Where in the year was I feeling flat? Where was I feeling alive? So draining energy for me, number one, cost of living. No, I'm actually not joking, because cost of living is ridiculous. It is looking at other people's social media, or just social media in general. That was a hole in my bucket. I have noticed that I don't do it in the morning, I don't do it at night, but when I do it, when I'm looking at what everyone else is doing, it's draining my energy if I do it long enough. So I have put practices in place to change that again. Draining me was when I was forcing myself to create, when I wasn't in a creative flow. And what else was draining me was multitasking, when I would set my day up with quite different tasks in one morning. So that all was really good to reflect on. Another thing you can do after the draining your energy or distracting your energy is go into what gave you energy. Because again, energy is such a GPS. So when you're like, oh, that person, hanging out with that person gave me energy, doing this thing gave me energy, petting my pet gave me energy, what things in the year, what times of the year, what were you doing when you had a lot of energy and you felt lit up? For me, putting out self-sourced was really energizing, because I was very aligned with it when I put it out. A few people that come into my life gave me a lot of energy. The conversations, daily movement practice, energy, connecting with myself through meditation and visualization, that gives me energy. And eating well, when I really prioritized, I think it was in October last year, for 2 weeks of just like a detox, I felt really good. Really got me thinking again of what foods am I really putting into my body to nourish me, and using my intuition to trust that I can do what's best for me and not get caught up in all the information out there. Next question is, what would have I done differently if I had the chance in 2024? I added this question in here because it gives us clues as to what feeling we're wanting to tap into more of in 2025, or what was missing in 2024 that we need to think about for this year. It can also really guide you to figuring out those words, 1 or 2 words for 2025, because those words are a focal point. For example, perhaps you realized last year that you could have taken more risks or spoken up in a situation where you were held back, work or relationships. That is something that you're missing. You're like, oh, I've identified that, I could have done more in this area. So a word for 2025 might be courage, to make courageous decisions, or to be brave. It will help guide you in acting boldly in the coming year. When we're talking about what we could have done differently as well, it really reveals those little habits and behaviors that we might want to shift. So write down what you would have done differently, habits, or something that was missing from your life. Finally, the last question to reflect on in 2024 was, what was a life lesson you learned in 2024 that you want to take forward into 2025? I love this question because, again, it's focusing on what worked well, what we learned, how we're growing. For me, it was around that trust and letting go, taking one step at a time and trusting and having the courage to trust. That was a massive one that continues to grow. So now we're going to get into the intentions for the year ahead. The first one, using all that information that you've got from the reflection of last year, I want you to think about, number one, what small change can I make in the next 6 months that I know will enhance my life? What am I willing to master through practice? Because, as I've said before, change is about small, consistent changes, micro steps in the right direction. We don't want to overwhelm ourselves or our systems by creating these massive goals that we don't reach immediately, and then we get into a loop cycle of shame and guilt. Let's focus on a small change. Me personally, I'm going to be networking more. I'm going to be attending more workshops and more events, which I started to do at the end of last year, and I really got a lot of energy out of it. Financially, there's some planning I need to do in that area. Small things that I know I can take active, actionable steps towards. I can curate my social media. I can get into those apps that limit time, which I haven't had to do, to be honest, but it's there. I can seek financial advice, and I can put my name down for networking events. I can change where I'm working from. These are all changes that I can identify an action step towards. So, what small change can you make in the next 6 months that you know will enhance your life? The next question is, how do I want to feel this year? What do I want more of? What feeling do I want more of? And this is basically guiding us to our words for 2025. For me, I put down connected, more clarity, and I want automations for work. So very specific on the feelings. Automations will give me peace of mind. It will give me simplicity. It will give me ease. It will give me clarity, and more connected, and more adventure as well. I love a bit of adventure. So I want to feel those things. So put down what you want to feel this year, what you want more of. Don't make it like a tangible thing so much. Really focus on getting honest with yourself and making it a feeling. Like, what feeling do you just want some more of in your life? That is the most important thing. And finally, those feelings help us narrow it down to a potential word. What word best represents what focus or feeling that you want to embody? Like I said, my word is synergy. So connected led me to synergy. Choose 1, 2, 3 words. You can keep going back to them. I like to put my word on my home screen, on my phone. I also like to have it as a title when I'm doing my goals, just so it can always link me back into like what I'm really focusing on this year, so I don't spread my energy too thin. I recommend just really carrying this word front and center of your mind, or back of the mind, into 2025 and having it as something, a grounding point that you can always go back to. In another episode, I'll go more into specific goal setting and how to create actionable steps, but do not underestimate the power of 1 or 2 intentional words for the year. I hope you all enjoyed the first episode back for 2025. You found this reflection exercise useful. I want to know what your words are. You are welcome to message me, keep yourself accountable, or tell a friend or family member so that they can also keep you accountable. Remember to head to the show notes in this episode so you can have a direct link to register for the free Women's Nervous System 101 workshop. I'm really looking forward to running this, and I know it will be really beneficial for all of you who attend. And if you have ideas of who you want to see on this podcast or what you want to hear more about, do message me, because I'm always open to hearing from you. I hope you all have a stunning week. Make the most of the sun wherever you are. and I will see you guys next week.